Hello, it's Jennifer. It's Friday, March 31st, and I thought I'd go over my peppers today. So starting indoors, here are my two Dracula peppers. Both of them are now flowering and fruiting now. So as you can see, it has these nice black peppers on them. That's really cool. I think as they mature, they're supposed to turn red. This one here has a bell pepper shape, so I'm not sure what's going on with that, whether it crossed with something, which it shouldn't have, because I have no bell pepper shaped plants in the house. But nonetheless, and the flowers on this are very pretty. They are ranged from purple to white with purple outline. I like them very much. And this one here has more pigmentation than the other plant. The other plant, looks very green, and maybe the lower leaves have some pigmentation, whereas this one, the leaves have lots of pigmentation. It's very beautiful. Behind here is a poinsettia, and this one isn't very healthy. I don't know what's going on with it, but the leaves get crispy and fall off. So it's trying to flower now. I don't know, I keep letting it go to see what happens. This is my indoor Scotch Bonnet. These are extremely slow growing plants, but I like the way this one looks. I like the way the leaves look kind of feathery, and they're big and they form this nice dome. Anyhow, it's a sturdy little plant, and I'm happy with it as long as it doesn't flower before it needs to. So it looks like it's not, that it's taking its time. This is my Christmas light pepper, and it has become a gorgeous house plant. It's got dried peppers all over it. It's very prolific in terms of the peppers, but I love the way that it has formed this cascade of leaves and peppers. It's very pretty, but it also drops a lot of leaves and and stuff and flowers, so it's also very messy. But yeah, this is turned out to be quite a pretty plant. I grew several of these, but this is the only one that survived and thrived. And lastly, indoors, this is my habanero. It recently had a big growth spurt, so it's got leaves and flower buds all over the place. I hope that all of these don't turn into peppers, because my goodness, what am I going to do with so many habaneros? But it's also turned into a beautiful house plant. I like the way that it's squat and very full of leaves. Yeah, this is a really nice looking house plant. I think the secret here is to make sure you have a big enough pot such that it can occupy all the space it needs. I haven't been tickling these flowers or anything like that because I really don't want this many habaneros. So we'll see what happens. Beginning with my outside peppers, this is my big Anaheim pepper plant. I overwintered it in a wine barrel, and so now it's coming back. It's looking pretty good. I cut it back to the main stalks in January, and so now it looks like it has some flowers on it. So I guess it'll be back in production very soon. Back here is another pepper. I think that's poblano, I'm not sure. Anyhow, it's trying to come back, but I don't know if it's really strong enough to fully come back and be vigorous. Anyhow, today I'm working on putting back up the shade barrier that I had before. So now that I've got some grommets and those ball connector, those ball ties, I'll go ahead and try to make something neater than I had before. So, and I'm also going to try to extend it to cover all 3 wine barrels. So this is how it looks after tidying things up. I left a gap at the bottom because these plants here are sages and they like the sun, and they have been escaping under the bottom of the previous shade enclosure. Same thing with the sweet alyssum. So I'm going to let them be happy out here in the sun while keeping the pepper and the Swiss chard somewhat shaded. I have to consider whether I'm going to leave this side open. I'm going to look at how the sun tracks today and decide whether I need to put shade over here as well. So when the peppers are this small, I like to concentrate on making sure that they don't flower too early. So for instance, this one I think still needs to grow some and put on some more leaves before it starts producing fruit. This one's already pollinated and has a little fruit on it. This is a Shishito pepper. So I'm going to go ahead and nip these off, but only the big flowering ones because they're the easiest ones to get at. I'll let the other smaller buds continue to develop and then see where they're at as the plant grows and cut them off as I see fit. I feel bad cutting off these nubs, but you're just too small, plant. Those are the ones that I can easily get at, and then I'll go through the rest of these and do the same. So these peppers here over on the, I guess you would call this maybe the south side yard, are Shishito peppers. Back here are 2 dragon rolls. I believe that one is a bell pepper of some sort, and this area of the yard gets morning sun and afternoon shade, although the plants closest to me do get some afternoon sun, which is why I have a bug and shade tent over them. So far they look to be doing pretty well, although this little guy here is a straggler, but you know, I'll give him some time. Maybe he'll grow up nice and strong. Forgive my camera work. I was trying not to be shaky, but it looks like this tripod's super shaky when you move it. And also, while I have the bug and shade tent up, I'll go ahead and feed these plants with a mixture of fish emulsion and some Epsom salts. So what I use is an ounce of the fish emulsion per gallon, and then I add in 2 tablespoons of the Epsom salts per gallon, and I just use one mix. It seems to work well with tomatoes, so hopefully it'll give the peppers a boost. That dragon roll pepper in the back, is looking really good. I have high hopes for it. I hope it tastes good. But so far it's turning out to be a pretty plant. So these are some of my outside potted peppers. Most of these aren't doing too well, so I have to decide whether I'm going to continue with all of them. Thank you, wind. The best looking one is this Scotch Bonnet. It's not as big as the one indoors. So the one indoors has a pretty constant temperature It gets about 6 to 7 hours of sunlight a day. This one out here is subject to the cold nights and then the hot days, so it's getting more stress than the plant inside. And as you can see, the leaves are quite a bit smaller. So today what I'm going to do is also give these plants some food to see if I can boost them. I think these ones here in the pots, I'll have to make a decision as to whether, the black plastic pots, I'll have to make a decision as to whether to continue with them. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to continue with this one. That is a pepperoncini that pretty much died after I sprayed it with some pyrethrin, and it never really came back. And the same with the one in the back. But these two look like they might be salvageable, so I will try again to give them some extra nutrients and see if they will bounce back. As for the Zavory plant, it's just stressed out and losing leaves. So I'm going to cut off some of these branches that lost their leaves, see how that goes, give it some extra food, and see how that goes. I might also nip off some of these flowers. If there's any fruit, I'm definitely going to nip that off such that it can concentrate on rebuilding itself. So a couple of days have passed since I started making this video. In that time, I've been able to put up the rest of my shading and clean that up such that it's a lot neater. And I also started removing some of the pepper plants that weren't doing so well. I ended up removing most of the overwintered plants because they had started to miniaturize. I'm not sure why they did that, but it was very strange. They had big leaves on the bottom and like long distances between the joints, and then as the plant got taller, not taller, newer parts, the joints were really thick, but they were just small until, you know, what had been 4 inches came down to ½ an inch between each joint, and it had tiny leaves and then miniature fruit. So I just went ahead and pulled that. I also pulled out the plant that was here that was a sweet pickle, which I found last year that I do not like this type of pepper. It tastes like a stanky cabbage, so I have no business growing a pepper that I dislike so intensely. But anyhow, I'm still going through the process today of deciding whether to keep or remove plants. So plants like this one are under question. It's basically lost a lot of its leaves, and it's been like this for a while. I haven't seen any side shoots where they try to grow, maybe this here, but not really. And then there's some plants over here that are also stragglers. So I might give them a couple days to see if they respond to the new shading. And then I'm also looking at whether there's duplicate plants, and in which case I'll just go ahead and choose the strongest plant, because there are more peppers that I can put in the garden. I particularly want some bell peppers, and I haven't been having luck with those. That was one of the ones that started to miniaturize, and I had to pull it out, and it was producing some weird looking fruits. So I bought some actual plant starts for that, and I'll show planting those later. I removed the pea plants from this bed because we now have too many peas, and I have to start freezing them, and our fridge is just full of peas, full of lettuce, and I can't handle any more peas. So when I did this, it uncovered this pepper plant here, which is a kung pao pepper, that was overwintered. It looks kind of straggly. I was expecting it to have started to bounce back more than this, so I'm a little concerned. Also within that pea mess were 2 tomato plants that were completely blighted, fungusy, and black. So I removed those 2 so as not to pose a danger to the rest of the garden. I removed the lettuces that were here as well, because those were infested with slugs, and because they had been attacked and it's getting hot, the lettuce had actually gone bitter, so we couldn't eat that anyway. I went ahead and put that in the compost pile. The rest of these are looking pretty good. What's left of the tomatoes are looking pretty good. So I will start repopulating this bed with some more peppers. Hopefully they'll do better now that it's warmer and the soil's warmer. So one of the problems I have is what to do with these 2 jalapeno plants that I overwintered. Last year there was a tent providing shade over them, but we haven't put that tent up yet, and we're probably not going to put that tent up until May or June. But for now, they're trying to come back from being dormant over the winter, but the sun is too intense for them. My thinking right now is to go ahead and move them out of this bed, since the rest of the herbs in this planter don't seem to mind the sun that much. So I think that's what I'm going to do today. Before I move those jalapenos and plant the starts I bought from the local big box store, I'm going to go ahead and put in some more dirt into these planters. So I bought some steer manure compost, and I'll go ahead and put some of that in and bring the soil level up some. It's now early evening and it's cooled down considerably, so now I'm going to go ahead and start planting my plant starts. So these are the ones that I bought either at, I think I bought these at Lowe's. What I like to do with the peppers is try to buy plant starts with multiple plants in them. That way I can break them apart and get more plants for my money. So what I look for, especially in plants this small, is to make sure that none of them have buds or are trying to flower now, because they're way too young to flower. If you buy something this small that's already flowering, it's probably going to end up being stunted, and you'll be disappointed with either no fruit or small fruit in a small plant. So make sure that you examine in the middle and make sure that there are no buds when you buy plants this small. When you buy plants maybe, I don't know, 9 inches, a foot tall, it's okay to have some small buds, but this small, make sure no buds. Alright, so this first one, they say you can plant it in the pots like this, like it is right now, but since I want to separate these out, I'm going to have to cut the pot off, and I'm just going to use these here garden snips to get the pot off. And this is a red bell pepper. And I'm just gingerly gonna break these apart and try to get at the 3 plants. I'll recover this dirt later. So I can tease these apart. These might be too old to separate. Let's see, come on. We have to see how this goes. What I'm going to do is snip off the seed leaves and bury these deep, because peppers will form roots along their stems. So let's bet on that. So I've planted my plants, and again, I put about a tablespoon of Epsom salt and a tablespoon of this organic mild fertilizer into each hole before I plant them. And so these are the ones I use. I think you can use any Epsom salt like you can buy at the drugstore, and you can use any fertilizer you want to. This just happened to be the cheapest. And here they all are planted out. I'm going to water these now. And back there. And I'll call it an evening for these peppers. And on an end note for today, yeah, I fell for the bubbleberry. Strawberry meets bubblegum. There's 4 plants in this pack. I'll see how it goes. I probably won't get strawberries till next year, even though they were forced to flower now.